this out, and if it goes well and people like it, we'll probably do it at least, once a quarter to give people updates. We've got a lot of stuff stacked up, so we're going to try to get through a bunch of material, and Rob can take us through some of the community growth stats with Alex, and then Yev's going to jump in a little bit and talk about engineering roadmap stuff. We're going to share some exciting updates. We have a big update coming out next week that's going to be something we want to keep secret for now. Let's get into it. Community call number 1. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to go through, so we're going to try to breeze through it all. This will be available as a recording later, so you can always go back and watch it again if you want.
First thing we really wanted to cover and highlight that we're all super excited about is just the sheer amount of growth that we've seen in the community over the last couple of months here. When we think about how DIMO grows, obviously we're interested in the number of cars that are getting added to the platform. This is going to be an important metric for. We're thinking about the Discord members and the people that are a part of this community and contributing, and even just the people who are following along. Basically, by every metric that we care about, the DIMO project has been growing really phenomenally well, and we're excited to capitalize on that growth. And most of the people who are here are probably contributors and passionate about DIMO. And honestly, we have you guys to thank for being a part of that. If I highlight anything, I think the thing that we're all most excited about when we think about this, it's the contributions from the community. We posted some blog posts today from one of our community members, Wiley. We have people who are contributing to the setting up of infrastructure and foundational technology in the organization we're building. We have people who are helping us support growth on the hardware side internationally. And if we did nothing else but bring together a lot of really passionate people about the vision, we feel like the rest of the things are going to take care of themselves. Really appreciate everyone who's pitched in.
Yeah, we know it's really important that the vision and community, for a project like ours, guides the project. That's what we are building on right now and forms the direction for all this. And to the point, we've had a lot of really great engagement from people in the community. We've actually even hired someone from there. We'll talk more about that in a bit. But really excited to see all the engagement we've been getting. It's blown us away.
One of the things, like Alex said, that really took us aback was how quickly people grasped onto what we were doing, and that we were able to sell out all the hardware so quickly. And we've moved into go fast mode in terms of the plan B for ramping up production of hardware, hiring people to scale out the team, bringing in more partners and companies into the ecosystem. And so we've got some high level roadmap items we want to share with people. These are things that we've talked about here and there, discussed with people at happy hour, but really at the core, we're really focused on connecting cars this year, and that's priority number 1. Mixed into that is obviously giving people something to do with the car when they connect it to the platform. And so a lot of that stuff is listed out here. We're not going to go through everything bullet by bullet, but there's some really high level stuff, and we're going to get into the detail when Yev shares the roadmap later. And what we're really looking at is taking a super long-term approach towards building out the platform and the project. So we're often making decisions on multi-year time scale, and we're trying to build this into something that is going to exist decades or even longer from now. And one of the comparisons that you can use for that is it took 100 years for the modern electric grid to really form, and it started with a very small system that was built and rebuilt over and over again by multiple companies collaborating, eventually building some shared infrastructure. And that's the model that we're looking at for how we're thinking about investing in building out not just the community, but the real ecosystem around DIMO. So with that comes with some choices and trade-offs you have to make, and you get one of these 2 of 3 choices a lot of the time when you're taking on complicated engineering or really any kind of project. And so we had to pick 2 out of 3 of these. It certainly wouldn't be a very long-term project if we sacrificed our sanity. So we're going for the Megalomania plus Shawshank Redemption version of this, where we keep the speed really high, we keep the ambition really high, and we try to maintain our sanity and take breaks and bring people into the project to supplement what's going on, and also pick really good partners that share and want to come into really buy into the long-term vision of what we're doing. We at Digital Infrastructure Inc., which is at this point the main company behind DIMO. There's obviously other contributors and lots of other companies building in the space, and we'll talk about those. We're up to 12 full-time people, which is pretty rapid growth, considering that over the summer of last year there were 0 people working on this full time. It was incubated within a company that was doing lots of other things. And we've added 2 people to the team that we're super excited about. And there's a couple of others that are going to be joining next month, including Marissa, who gets a special shout out because she actually helped us put together this whole deck and has been pitching in like a number of super important ways. But Daniel has joined, and he came to us from Bird, where he helped scale their launch, business dev, global expansion for fleets of connected vehicles, and in their case, mostly scooters. And he has a really good toolkit that's going to help us in a lot of different ways and has already hit the ground running in terms of bringing fleets online. And then we have our first person who's actually come from the community who found out about the project through Helium, and Shaolin Funktastic, who a lot of you probably know from the Discord, is also the first person to be working for DIMO under a pseudonym, which is cool. Obviously, we know who he is, but it's a very Web3 of us that we now have a pseudonym on the team. And so, yeah, we're super pumped about this. I think there's going to be a lot more announcements like this, both for Digital Infrastructure Inc. and a bunch of the other companies in the community, where you're going to start to see people working full-time on the project that don't work for the company that the 4 of us on this call here today do.
Also, shout out to Euler Lagrange on the pseudonym side.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
But so we talked about this a little bit last time on the D Media call, but to recap and to take it further, again, we're really thinking about building DIMO like building a city. So that DIMO tower in the middle, and that's maybe the first building to show up and build some of the foundation. It's the HQ as we're laying the sidewalks and roads and whatnot. But we really want eventually for DIMO to resemble a city, and for all these different partners, D teams, applications built on top of it to be like other buildings and locations inside the city, such that there's not this one centralized wall around it all, but it's more of a real ecosystem. So we talked a little bit about D teams in the D Media presentation, but to take it a little bit further, we're starting to build them out a little bit more. We have a few more now, and if you go into the Discord, you can see a bunch of them. With each D team, there is an info channel that shows what they're all about, their purpose and their authority. There's also a little bit a lobby underneath that where people without any role can come in and chat about the team and contribute ideas and so on. We want to make it possible for people who have the qualifications and interest to contribute to these D teams to learn about what they're doing and actually join them and start contributing. Obviously, there's going to be stages to this. Like we can't be issuing tokens to people participating because the token isn't out yet, but we want to continue to make these more open and easier to join and something that's more interesting for people to join. So if you actually, this is a static image, but if you go to Sobel, you can actually see some of these teams in here, click on them, see who's in and what they do, and with links to their Discord, Wiki, and Trello. Again, we're in the process of building it out, so it's relatively bare bones, but D Media is a good example here of a team where you can see some of the different teams, some of the different roles, and link out to it.
And the whole goal of all of this and the metric that we're keeping an eye on, which is not something quantify directly, but how quick and how easy is it for someone who doesn't know anything about DIMO or maybe only knows a little bit to get the necessary context to meaningfully contribute to something that they have skills or interest in. And so that's what we're really measuring is how quickly can we incorporate a new member, and eventually there's going to be real commercial reasons to do that. And now in this really nice early stage where everybody who's here is here because they're really interested in the project and want to contribute in one way or another, or at least learn about what we're doing, which is cool.
And that's the goal of this period that we're entering now is you guys can come and help build this project right now. There are lobbies that you can go and visit in Discord. There are Gitbook pages set up. There are Trello boards set up. So dive in, go visit the D team info and lobby pages. And if you want to get involved, you can message us and message the people there to get started.
Yep. Some of them furthest along teams right now in terms of how you can contribute. D Media, which is the team that's helping to generate social NFTs, air fresheners, and fuzzy dice and things like that, which we'll show a little bit about later. Blog content, Twitter content. We could definitely use memes. We can use help from the community in generating that. D Core used to be known as D DAO, and that is a D team focused on rewards, governance, org design, so on. So it's the meta in that way, and that's actually a great place for us to start. We want to get a lot of feedback on how we can make the process of contributing to D teams better, because that has a ripple effect on everything else. And some of those channels are great for us giving some updates on what we're doing, getting feedback from people, having collaborative discussion on those things. So please check out those info pages if you want to get involved with those teams. The hardware is a little bit further along. If you're someone who's in the hardware supply chain space, look at that one.
And it's not just for individuals, and we've really started to have a lot of productive dialogue with companies that are interested in building on the platform. And that's folks that already have existing automotive services businesses or are creating hardware for the Helium ecosystem or other automotive grade hardware, and organizing these into these different teams. And we're going to start to surface that information in context where it makes sense. And obviously there's proprietary, or not so much as proprietary on our side, but at least with the companies we work with, and we need to take precautions to protect that information and people's privacy. And so not everything can be public, but where we can, we're going to try to be radically transparent about how we're doing things. And hopefully that increases the amount of shared trust and context that there is in the community.
So a little bit of an update from the deplatform team. Quite a bit of progress this week and moving forward. So we officially began to work on the device pairing this week. So this is what's going to allow everybody to receive their device and mint an NFT of their car and plug it in and eventually own essentially the identity. Within a few days, we just completed the initial data analytics implementation for the platform. So if you had your car connected, you will be able to start seeing data. If you're a new user, you will obviously see data as well, but quite a bit less. At the end of this month, early March, we're adding a first-party Tesla integration. So this is going to allow us to add a ton more data and create a more direct connection between your car and DIMO. We're working on improving the security model within DIMO quite a bit as well. So we're adding additional layers of encryption to any data that we store. We're essentially getting to a point where even members of, me, even I can't access it if I wanted to. And that's the goal where we want to go and the perfect trust model for this project to have. Additionally, we're working with quite a few open source projects. So one of them I wanted to call out, which is Benthos. It has about 3,000 stars on GitHub, has a great developer and a great ecosystem around it. And we're using it quite a bit for data transformation and moving data between systems. Shout out to Ashley Jess for that. And additionally, you guys may be aware, but Streamer is launching their mainnet Brewback network, and our goal is to launch the AutoPie DIMO streaming on their new network, which should be live here within just a couple of weeks. So a little shout out to Henry and the Streamer team for all the great work they've been doing. And that's essentially it. There's a picture of our current backlog, which there's quite a few things to do, but every single day there's more things getting completed, which is the sweet spot for us to be. On the next slide here, we have quite a few pictures from our community on the people that are core contributors and have already received their devices. So shout out to Shikaran, Shellfunk, Dr. Pillow, Valor, Hayati, Fallen, and Ald for photos of their installation, and we're giving us some proof that this is a real device. You can actually plug it in. Here it is in a real car. Thank you all for your help and contributions and tests. On the bottom left there, we have a little picture of a large software update that we ran last week. So we had some issues with our connectivity provider, and we wanted to make sure that everybody who's receiving this device doesn't have any, let's say, difficult things to do when they receive it. So we went through and updated the rest of our alpha testing inventory to the latest version via our, let's say, a makeshift software update. What do you want to call it? Desk, for lack of a better word. And that's pretty much it. I think Andy wanted to chime in as well on the installations.
Yeah, so we're definitely moving out of the alpha testing or early alpha testing, I guess you could call it, phase, where we're updating devices in our own office and shipping directly to users. We're in the process of moving to a third-party logistics company and possibly also a distributor for the devices in the future. So we'll be shipping them directly from the manufacturer to a professional warehouse and not a DIMO HQ, which would be great. And we're obviously, based on these pictures, really optimizing the instructions that we can give users on how to properly install the device, which for fleets is one thing. Typically, a fleet will have an installation person. That's something that we generally rely on. But for the individual consumer, we want to make sure that every vehicle that tries to connect to the network can do so successfully, and also the devices are positioned properly and safely. And that's something that we're spending a lot of time getting. And there's a ton of variables to control for there. And so that's why we're taking the time to really make sure that the early users on the consumer side have a good experience. We're also pushing a bunch of updates to the apps. We just looked at a demo of time series, which has been really awesome to see. You get historical data from your car now. There's some genuine insights there. We're also really thankful for the folks that have been able to get on the test flight build of the app, and we've had a ton of really good feedback that's allowed us to iterate a lot faster there. And Aaron has been showing some really cool features that are going to be released around device pairing now that we've nailed down that process. And I know Yev said we officially kicked it off, but I feel like we've been working on that for a month already, and it's something that we feel like we have nailed down, and it's somewhat final design at this point. And there's also this concept that we've been hacking on and really having in the design phase for a couple of months that we're calling a mobility data union. And we wanted to throw in a quick sort of like historical tidbit about that and give you some context on how we're thinking about it. Thank you. And you've got all these old-timey looking people with old-timey names, and they're the founders of the what people in the US know as AAA, which is the American Automobile Association. And they all got together and decided that cars needed roads in order to work properly, and that the government and local governments weren't investing in roads properly in order to allow them to use their cars how they wanted. So they got together a little lobbying group, and eventually it grew an organization with millions of members where you can get discounts on oil changes and cruise ship reservations or whatever. And that's not really the path for us, but it's something that's an inspiration in some ways for how we're designing the data union, where we think about this as AAA for modern mobility with connected cars, where we've realized that there's definitely some problems around how cars are connecting to the internet today, and generally users are being left out of the benefits of this technology. And we've worked quite a bit with the Streamer team to go deep on this concept they've created called a data union, and we're tacking on an extra word, and we're going to always give them full credit for coming up with the idea initially. At its core, we're aggregating the data and vehicle connectivity from cars. This will always be an opt-in thing for DIMO users, but we want to make it something that is a no-brainer for people that are comfortable sharing information, and also allow them to retain complete control over what it is that is coming out of their car or any other IoT device. And we've started to have some really interesting conversations with the big, large corporations of the world that do automotive services, and they're really intrigued by the idea of being able to build supply really quickly and using a token or a similar type of instrument to actually guarantee user ownership of a network, which is a cool and novel concept that Helium has created. And so when you put these two things together, you wind up with something that really allows users to band together and collectively bargain for better prices or discounts on things. And we think there's going to be some really compelling stuff that comes together pretty quickly. It will start small. There won't be a whole lot of data sharing involved because we want to make sure that it's being done responsibly. But I think pretty quickly in the next couple of months, you're going to start to see some real tangible benefits for joining a data union. And it's something that is going to be a part of DIMO for a while. And it's basically the first application that is really built on the platform other than what you see in the dashboard today and the mobile app. So speaking of which, we're designing out a lot of these other third-party applications, and some of them, like I said, are going to be basic affiliate links. You don't have to feel like you're being advertised at on the platform. We want to make sure that everything that comes in initially is really something that we ourselves would use or users are telling us they like. And our goal for a lot of the initial apps and integrations that we do is to help you save on the total cost of ownership, the TCO of your car. And we also want to share information that can help the rest of the world from the cars that opt in to data sharing. So one example is these public listing pages that show you how cars are performing. We think something like consumer reports could be made a lot better if it was more data driven and based on actual user data. So that's something that we're going to be working on this year. And we're also creating an app store that developers can show up to. And we have a lot of thoughts on the design of that will make it a lot better than what exists today for iOS and Android apps, where you have these large companies taking unnecessary cuts and basically preventing developers from building to their greatest potential. And obviously, we're interested in the car as an NFT, both from a device identity standpoint and for the technical merits of that concept. But we've been having some interesting conversations with designers and people that are interested in allowing you to own the stylized, skinned NFT concept from your own car, attach the data to it. If you take it to the racetrack, you can have your fastest lap time attached to it. That's what Yev wants. And if you're interested in working on this, you should reach out to us as soon as you can, because we really want to have a lot of different options, and we're going to try to pick best in class teams to be able to deploy this first and have it be something that can be really like community driven.
Yeah, and this will only get more robust over time. There's a Form in D app ecosystem in the Discord to signal that you want to work on something, but you can also find us other places as well and just bring us with ideas.
All right. Hands down, the most popular question that we get is when Europe, and specifically, I guess when UK maybe is the most popular country within that. It's not necessarily part of Europe anymore technically, but from our perspective it is. And so we're going to allow people in Europe to connect cars starting in March, and that's going to start with software connections. We will have the Tesla Direct connection live then. We're doing some GDPR testing. I guess it's more like regulatory review and making sure that everything is fully compliant. And we're also dedicating supply from the next pre-sale specifically for Europe. So we're going to enable certain countries for a dedicated period of time to make sure that Europe can essentially catch up to the US and Canada and actually get in on the fun. And we have a bunch of information to share about the pre-sale process and the hardware delivery through the rest of the year that I want to make sure everyone, I think a lot of people are probably here for that. So I want to make sure everybody takes this with a grain of salt. Like, this is us trying to put the pedal to the floor and go as fast as we possibly can to deliver hardware in a responsible and safe way that is also a great product for people to use. And it took Helium 5 years to get to the point that they're shipping hardware products to consumers. So we're trying to go quite a bit faster than that, and obviously building on a lot of the great work that they did in a more robust supply chain for a lot of the components. But here's what we've put together now, and obviously this is subject to change. This is the go fast plan, and there's going to be one of the big questions we get is, where in my order number am I going to be able to, when am I going to expect the device to show up if I'm order number 2405? This should help people figure that out. We're going to share this information publicly on the website and allow people to look it up. We're also going to grade ourselves based on this plan. So this is something we've bought into, our supplier has bought into. The closer you get to the present day, the more confident we are that we're going to be able to hit this. But there are things out of our control that can push this back. So this is us being as transparent as possible with the community about everyone on our side and the AutoPi team and even our distributors and partners in the space that are all working on making this device a huge success are bought into this plan. And it may not happen this way. And we could, look back at this video 6 months later and say that was hilarious, but we're working every day. I wake up and think about how to make this possible. A couple of details here. The Alpha Fleet is what we've already sold pre-sale orders for. And obviously we're going to prioritize shipping that as soon as we can. And those are going to start to ramp in a really serious way in April. And we're going to aim to have all of those delivered by July. So if you were the last person to order, you'll probably get your device in July. And we're going to do everything we can to exceed that with as much sanity as we can preserve for the team on our side. The pre-sale that we're going to open up in the next couple of weeks here, I can't say exactly when, but soon, will be delivered starting in June. And so that, as it gets further away from present day, is essentially more at risk. More stuff could happen that offsets that and makes it either not possible or potentially a little faster. And then one thing that we're working really hard to enable and have had some great companies reach out is when we skipped a couple of letters in the Greek alphabet to go straight to Echo. And that's because this is going to be the ecosystem hardware providers. And these folks are going to be producing the device essentially as it exists today, but we'll be able to take some minor design considerations, and as long as they're conforming to the spec, be able to produce a product that uses the same software and components to deliver the same result. And that would allow us to get out essentially directly selling the hardware to people, which is not something that we think is good for the long-term health of the project. But we're going to do everything we can to make sure that these are quality hardware providers. And these are folks that have an established track record of delivering, whether they're coming from the Helium community or another similar hardware project, or have built automotive grade hardware before. That's something that's going to really allow us to scale up and create a much more decentralized community around the project. So last point that's worth mentioning here is in 2023, we're going to have a lot more hardware options come online. That's our plan, at least. And that's when the form factor of the device is going to start to change. And we're going to start to add functionality that's more hardware driven. And so things that we want to do, it's on the wish list. And we've known from day one that we're going to support is video, for example. So there will be some form of dash cam. Obviously, you can integrate yourself today with the AutoPie if you want. There's great documentation on their site of how to do that. But DIMO will natively support video in some way in the next couple of years. And it's likely that we're going to start at least supporting the development of and working on hardware that's capable of providing that functionality, which is going to be really cool. We're going to drop these NFTs that we've been teasing for a while. Shout out to Shiny for producing these shiny air fresheners. We've come up with this kind of like rough scheme of how to qualify people for them. And this is something that we're going to do a lot more of over time. Can't really say when or where. It's not a huge priority for us, but it's fun. And I think it's something that people generally want. And yeah, as soon as next week, you'll be able to qualify in. A lot of these things are going to be, this will remain open for a while. So if it takes a year I hope it doesn't, but if it takes a year for 100 people to connect to AutoPie and refer a user, I think it will likely happen in the first couple of months. Then you'll be able to get whitelisted and go mint one of these NFTs. And eventually we'll have a nice way in the app for you to display it. And we've got some other accessories for your NFT card that will be coming out, and have tossed around some ideas around DIMO bumper stickers, both real and fake or digital. And we're going to have some physical swag to go along with these virtual NFT accessories for your cars. And the green NFT is going to have some special powers associated with it, and will be tied into the D-Green D team, which that's going to come online in the next few months as we start to stand up more of these D teams. So yeah, that's all we've got as far as the presentation is concerned today, and we can jump in and take some questions.
Yep.
And
let me just get the questions up. We'll be taking them from the top. Some things we may or may not be able to comment on, but let's see. Let's start with the first. What happens when you sell your car? Can you use DIMO on your new vehicle by updating your account?
Yeah, what do you say? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I'll give you both answers. Ideally, we would like the device to be permanently attached to the car, but I understand that you guys are all motivated and you want to record every one of your drives, and we'll have a process for you to update your car information to include the new car.
There will be it'll be not identical to changing the location of a Helium hotspot. There's some other considerations. And for those of you familiar with that process, it involves paying a fee. There's a reattest. It has to go to the blockchain, and it's not going to be quite as painful as that process, which I've done dozens of times myself, but similar in nature, I would say.
Keep in mind too, you can add multiple cars to one garage. So you could add your new car even before you get rid of your old one. I think the question is probably more about, can you move the minor from one to the other? Which next question, any thoughts on KPIs for measuring and promoting community engagement? How can we make the new member experience sticky and engaging and memorable? Which is a phenomenal question, and one we would love to spend more time answering and get more feedback from the community on. That's part of the scope for degrowth and decore a little bit, depending on whether it's general community engagement versus more like contributor and Discord engagement. And we absolutely know that we can do better here. It's also a little bit difficult in the early stages of a project, just because you tend to have with early startups a lot of very quick centralized decision making, and then as companies get larger, there ends up being more distributed work on more mature infrastructure. So it's a little bit harder, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing that, and we want to get better at that. Any other things to add on that question?
And I think like I said before, it's really hard to take all of the context that exists in a company and make it accessible to people outside. And a big part of that for us is going to be, we work with a lot of partner companies, and we're also bringing a lot of community members in. So eventually we'll be able to check in with people and survey them and say, like, how is it going? Check in with people that dropped off or stopped contributing. And then, like Maurice, like you said in the next question, has there been discussion around paying contributors for completing bounties? Yeah, we're doing that already. It has been very informal. Like, we've reached out to people that have done cool work online and said, hey, would you like to do that for us? And we don't have any expectation. I want to make it really clear. We don't have an expectation that people will just like contribute for free forever. There's a lot of stuff where it's when people are happy to do that. I've done that for other projects. I think we've all found something that's cool and tried to put our mark on it here or there. Where there's real professional trade craft going on and contributions that are meaningful and helping us advance the project by selling more hardware or creating media that people want to value. Like, we don't expect anybody to work for free. There's always going to be a line between folks that are trying to learn about what we're doing and are just genuinely interested in it, and then folks that are like, I want to complete a bounty and get paid for it. And we certainly don't have any reservations about that, and we're fortunate to be in a position where we're resourced in such a way that we can pay people for things, and often much more sustainable relationships with people when you're able to help them put food on the table by contributing to your project. That's a great thing for us.
This gets a lot easier when we can, the community can reward contributors with a token. Can't do that yet for a couple of mostly regulatory reasons, but that is obviously going to be a big part of it going forward. In the meantime, we can pay contractors and hire folks as we've done. There are a couple other questions that came up here. Will you wait to open rewards until first batch of alpha hardware devices are shipped? It's not fair to early adopters who bought but do not have a connected vehicle.
We can't talk about, so there's going to be an extended testing period where at a certain point we're going to start keeping track of things and testing out a couple of different reward algorithms that generate these points for real world actions. And we're testing proof of movement using that, and we want people to try to break it and game it. And we've gone back to the drawing board a couple of times on the incentives for what we're now calling baseline rewards, and we're going to publish an update on that. And have been hacking on it directly with a couple of community members to get their feedback on it. One of the big learnings, and we got this from the meme competition actually, was that people saw the reward structure and were like, great, I'm going to drive around all the time and I'm going to drive so many more trips because I have this DIMO miner in my car. And that's not really what we want to happen. And we don't want our mark on the world to be, we incentivize people to drive a bunch of unnecessary miles. So we think we've come up with something that we're still in the review phase on, and it's going to solve for that and also allow the community and D teams to have a much greater impact on the rewards for the project. So that's something that we're pretty excited to share with people. We want to make sure that we don't release these massive updates every month to the rewards team, but this is one that is quite essential. And that's going to happen over the next couple of months. We're going to start issuing points to people, which may or may not, directly correlate into some kind of token down the line. We're, looking at the landscape, the regulatory landscape, and also just how we want the project to be, and trying to figure out the best way to do that. And we could do it today if we wanted to, but we really want to make sure that the opportunity is equally distributed around the world as much as is possible. And also it's in the hands of the community to decide how it works. And we want to steer it in certain directions initially, but ultimately we know it's eventually going to be out of our hands. And one other thing to say is that I think the discussion around the token and rewards in general will essentially fade into the background over time, we hope, because there's going to be a lot of reasons to connect your car to DIMO that are not just how do I get the token. And that's one thing that we're investing the most of our the most possible amount of our energy in, which is this is a great hardware device. It helps me because I can opt out of this sort of surveillance capitalism predatory data practice that's going on that we don't like. And there's also great features, and it helps me save money on my car through discounts and other things that people like. But yeah, that's a vision there.
And just to make sure we covered your question, we agree that it wouldn't be fair if you weren't able to earn tokens for that entire period because we were still getting the device. And while we haven't figured out exactly how we'll do that. We understand that, and
there'll be a point that we set with the community where vehicles will hit a certain threshold. The platform is mature enough. Our goal is to have that happen as soon as possible, but we can't be specific about the date. And we don't want it to be something that, especially the early users, like overly fixate on and cycle on, because there's more important things for us to be waking up every day and thinking about.
Any plan to launch DIMO Learn to Earn program, educated and engaged audience can add lots of value to the network. Yeah, we've seen projects do that with Coinbase, with Rabbit Hole. With Rabbit Hole, there's been a lot of really good stuff there. We think that when we're on a protocol where gas fees are lower, it's much easier to get people to engage when it's $60 to do the bounty that gets you the credential. So that is something that we've seen other projects do very well, something that we're very interested in. Not something that we've come up with a rigid plan on, or a fully baked plan on yet, but definitely want to cover. The next,
I'd love for that to be a community-driven project too, and I think it's something that we could even do a bounty around. A little bit skeptical. I've done some of these learn to earn things, and I'm a little bit skeptical, but I'm willing to have my mind changed on that for sure. And it's not that it's even really up to me or anybody in this call at all, but it's something if somebody wanted to do, we can take a look at it for sure.
Yeah, come to the D Media lobby and hit me up about that.
yeah, that'll be a new channel inside of the D Media.
No more channels.
More channel. What VCs are backing DIMO? Will there be funding transparency? Can't announce it yet. We're just about closed on our seed round, very close, and we'll put out a press release with all that information in the not too distant future. Hopefully, gain a lot of buzz around that.
Yeah, it's something we're able to do a lot because of, and we're going to be pushing the boundary on transparency there, and we want to let everybody know why and what it unlocks, and also the reasoning behind it. And I've seen this done poorly, and I've seen it done well, and we're gonna obviously try to do it as well as we can.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll have some cool announcements on that in the future for sure.
We were lucky to have a lot of demand for the rounds. We got to be a little bit picky, and we got to know our DC's really good people. So we're very happy to be working with them. The second batch of devices go up for sale. That was touched on in the presentation a little bit. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks.
Australia, Asia Pacific, we're looking into that pretty actively. It's unfortunately something that we can't prioritize because of the level of demand at this point for it. We're certainly open to I mean, we want to support the entire world. We want to make this work on the planet Earth and every country, every planet that we go to after that. Teslas will earn DIMO mining credits without the add-on hardware. That is the idea. And there's a bunch of work that we need to do to clarify what the hardware will unlock for users, both in terms of privacy benefits and the ability to earn on the platform. And that's something that we're going to be able to share a lot more on in the next couple of weeks.
Core team members, outside of getting people to connect to the cars, what areas community members can add the most value over the next 3 to 4 months? Touched on this in an earlier question. We're still trying to figure out how best to engage folks, but obviously people have been getting very involved in the Discord, helping to beta test the mobile app.
Dr. Pillow made a TikTok video that got 90,000 views in 3 days. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, much more than that, right?
More, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
hundreds of
we
thousands
see
of
things come in that are, somebody in the community told us about this, and you have companies that were like shocked or reaching out to us saying, hey, we want to build on your platform, and it's because we saw this on TikTok. We're like, all right, cool. Like, we got to do more of that. We don't, there's an infinite number of ways to contribute to what we're doing. And I think a lot of the biggest thing when somebody asks, like, obviously connecting cars is super important right now. That's their main goal. The ability to put your own mark on the project, like D-Media is a really easy place to contribute these days. Not easy, but like writing is hard and doing art is not always easy, but yeah, if you're so inclined, that's a good place to start. And we had our first community contribution. Wiley, we put up the post from Wiley today, which is like pretty technical concepts distilled down into some manageable chunks on blog posts. So if anybody thinks those should be translated into other languages, that would be a good place to start. And yeah, that would get us much further along to getting into Japan or other countries. If you look at the list of big countries, we want to support all of them. We want to support all the small countries too. So helping us think through how that can happen, whether it's navigating local rules and regulations, getting car dealers excited about DIMO in other countries we're not in yet. That's a really important thing. Referrals you should be able to see already, and more reporting is getting pushed live tomorrow. So you'll see time series data, and we have a bunch of ideas around allowing people, like we're going to start adding, this isn't going to happen like anytime in the next couple of sprints, but like adding the ability to ask users questions about their vehicle and have them answer is going to be really helpful for us, and also will allow us, that'll be more of a data union thing for us to be able to showcase some of the aggregated data about what people think about their vehicles. I personally have been very frustrated with the quality of car reviews, and I want to make those better. And so we're going to have that type of reporting available to people on the DIMO platform as well.
And the data on smart car connection is always going to be relatively limited, but when we build a Tesla integration, we get the miner connected, then we'll be able to go very robust with the. Or yeah, well, right now it's quite limited, so there's only so much we can do on the reporting side with that connection specifically, but the miner and the Tesla integration will add a lot more data. Any roadblocks or bottlenecks becoming obvious as you started scaling up?
No, nothing.
I think we generally expected that a lot of this stuff would be quite hard, especially at scale. There are global supply chain issues, managing. It's very easy to manage a Discord of 20 people, one with 5,500 people with different questions and ways of contributing. We feel like we're leaving a lot on the table, not having the kind of contribution format more fully baked.
Yeah, and the transparency thing is something that we're trying to push the envelope on, and eventually probably get burned by it a little bit, but I think in general it's good, and it helps us build trust and get really good ideas from the community. And a lot of the best stuff that's happened in the last couple of months originated with a community member, somebody who found out about the project and reached out. And so it's not a bottleneck, but I know Rob and Alex, you guys probably think about this the most. It's like how do we treat that as not like a product, but how do we optimize it and get people the most information and have them feel like they can get from the lobby of the building up onto the floor they need to be on.
Does adding additional vehicles to a garage require additional purchase of DIMO hardware?
No, you can add a vehicle with the VIN, and if you have a smart car enabled vehicle or Tesla, you can add it and start seeing data from it today.
Yeah, it's very likely that you'll earn more if you install the hardware miner on all your devices, unless it's a Tesla, in which case you absolutely don't need to, and the Tesla integration will be just as good as the miner. But you can add as many cars as you want to your garage right now. It's just a matter of whether you can connect them without the miner or not.
Developer projects on the demand side. I personally love the sell your car button, and that's something that we've had a lot of interest in. Companies want to be on the other side of that button, and we want to figure out how to do it in a way that helps the community. We want to get you guys paid for your car when you decide to sell it. So that's a big thing that's come up, and that's going to be an app on the platform. That's not something that we want the core team working at Digital Infrastructure Inc. or any of the partners working on the project today. Like, we don't want to really be in the middle of that transaction. We want it to happen, and we want to help users get the most for their vehicle. That'll be a data union level thing, and so that's a really cool one that we weren't super focused on initially. There's refinancing options for vehicles, especially for electric vehicles. And we've had a lot of interest in that. We might have something to announce there relatively soon.
There's a lot of other stuff. I think that we should wait and get more into the details on that.
Yeah. We've always talked about pay per mile, insurance, peer-to-peer car sharing, Web3 Uber as other types of things that could be built quickly, just to give people ideas. It's going to be a bit, but just to give you an idea of the types of things that could be built on top of this infrastructure. Saw an airdrop talked about in the documents. Can you all touch on that?
No.
We can talk about it a little bit. We can't be super specific. Obviously, there is what there is in the documents. Ultimately, there will be a period where people will be tracking how people are connected, and there will likely be some time in the future where there's a distribution from potentially some other entity, and it might correspond with activity prior to the distribution.
All of that to say, basically no detail on that.
Yeah, I guess what's in the documents is, literally anything that is already in the documents. Can't really go much further than what's in there already.
I like the linking a car avatar to Waze to show you are a DIMO driver while using the app. I want to get DIMO data. The biggest thing for us is getting people to mint their cars as NFTs. Will allow you to take your car and the data from your car into other apps if you want to do that. And we are working as hard as we can to unlock that primitive. And we've seen some car companies start to mess around with it themselves, which is awesome, because that is, I don't think they're going to be able to do it. We're going to be able to do it, which is, it's definitely something that is on the radar, and we're gonna be able to unlock some cool stuff with that. And the Waze thing, I'm not a Waze user You use Waze?
I use Waze. I don't know if you want to go figure out how to do that's community contribution right there. We could look at it ourselves and would love to. I just don't know anything about what that process is like, but that sounds like a great idea.
With options to feed electric car power back into the grid at peak times of demand, could there be an option to increase rewards for doing this? Yes, and that is a degreen project that we already have on the roadmap. And maybe version 1 of this, I think, will entail something as simple as surfacing the carbon intensity of the electric grid information to users if they're in an area that has that data available. And that's something that is extremely low lift from a technical perspective. It's, again, needs to live at the app layer. And so while we're building the core protocol, like that's always going to be the priority. But several electric utilities have reached out to us and we've talked to them and said, this is something that we can do. And there's ways for them to support that and to encourage it and to take it into the next level. And that certainly has always been an imagined use case.
Can users from Europe participate in the NFT minting?
Yes. We will probably do another one for Europe, depending on the timing of everything when those units get shipped out. There's going to be a lot of NFTs. There's going to be fuzzy dice. There's going to be keys. There's going to be bumper stickers. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. There's nothing particularly special about the first one, other than that it's the first one, and it's cool. We're going to have some DIMO apparel. That can be a great community project. Definitely something that we want to. And if you have some cool design, if you make one, we can figure out a way to put it up in our store, and that's definitely something that we can figure out how to get you paid for that, for sure. Make some cool stuff, and we can have maybe a community vote on that. Alpha testers will get a special NFT, that's for sure. We're holding back some of the most hot designs for that, and yeah, I think we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up here. If you still have any questions that weren't answered, I'll hop into GatherTown for a little bit just to hang out. I would encourage everybody to swing by there, and I will put an invite to this in the announcements channel and in the general channel if you want to click that and come in here and hang out for a little bit. So cool. Thanks all for coming. We're going to end the stream now and talk to you in GatherTown.